I never imagined waking up in the wrong billionaire's room would lead to a heartbreaking romance. The sunlight slicing through silk curtains felt almost too warm, too inviting. As I blinked awake, confusion drifted in with the morning mist. The massive chandelier, glistening like a fortress of diamonds, loomed over me, making my head spin. My memory was a jumbled mess. The last thing I remembered was crashing at a party, laughter and glances swirling around me. Now I could feel my heart pounding, a frantic rhythm in my chest. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, the plush white carpet absorbing my hesitation. The room was lavish. Framed photos of a man with a sharp jawline and ice blue eyes stared back at me from the walls. They were nothing like the faces I knew. Who was he? A chill ran down my spine. Was I in a stranger's lair? My pulse quickened as I scanned the space, searching for clues. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat on the mahogany nightstand, a remnant of the night before, a silent witness that I found my phone in the pocket of the clothes I wore. It was dead, offering no solace. Panic wrapped around me, squeezing like a vice. The door creaked, and I froze, my heart caught in my throat. I stretched to listen. Was that footsteps? Heavy and deliberate, creeping closer. The elegant sound of shoes on hardwood sent shivers through me. The door swung open, and there he stood. The billionaire. My eyes widened in horror as he took in my disheveled state. His expression morphed from confusion to surprise and then to something darker, anger? I stepped back, my hands trembling. Who are you? His voice cut through the air, low and dangerous. A possessive flicker ignited in his eyes, but underneath, a glimmer of concern peeked through. My chest tightened. I hadn't meant for any of this to happen. I don't remember. The words tasted like fear. Uncertainty hung heavy between us, curling like thick fog, wrapping around my brain. How did I end up here? I thought of my friends, their laughter echoing in my mind, and a sharp sorrow hit me. Before I could piece together my thoughts, he stepped toward me. You're not supposed to be here. You shouldn't have woken up in my room. His tone was an unsettling mix of frustration and protectiveness. My breath hitched. What had I done? My feet suddenly felt leaden. What was going on? Why did the air crackle with tension? The world outside this opulent prison seemed so far away. As he stared at me, something shifted in his gaze. I saw a flash of vulnerability, like the fleeting shadow of a storm about to break. Was he hiding something? My heart raced. What kind of game was he playing? The room felt smaller, the silence unbearable. Between us, there was more than distance, there was a shared secret. Then, just as abruptly, he turned away, his jaw clenched. Stay here. His voice was clipped, but I could hear the underlying plea. Pressing my lips together, I nodded, trying to quell the chaos inside me. But who was I kidding? Questions spiraled, my stomach twisted in knots. Would I really just sit here? What if waiting led to more hurt? As he stepped out, the door clicked softly behind him, locking me in an opulent prison of dreams and fears. I pressed my palm against the cool surface of the wall, searching for answers, but they remained locked away. What had I wandered into? I was more lost than ever, caught between this glittering facade and the darkness swallowing me whole. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence in the room was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat thud in rhythm with the anxiety coursing through my veins. I wandered over to the window, pulling aside the heavy silk curtains just enough to steal a glance outside. The bustling city below felt like another world entirely. People laughed, hurried along streets lined with glimmering storefronts, and the sun bathed everything in a golden hue. It was a stark contrast to the chaos that stirred inside me. I glanced back at the door, willing myself not to imagine where he had gone. My fingers grazed over the photos of him, each image a fragment of a story I was not part of. It felt like an intrusion, a peek into a life I had stumbled into. What kind of man was he? I had no answers, only questions swirling like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm, flitting endlessly from one unresolved thought to the next. Resting my forehead against the cool glass, I closed my eyes, wishing for clarity. But instead, fragments of last night flared to life, faces and laughter, climbing over one another, and finally, his piercing gaze, the way it had seemed to reach into me and understand my very essence. What was happening? I realized I couldn't even remember how I had come to feel so lost. Suddenly, my memories were interrupted by the sound of a knock, made timid by the heavy door. I stepped back, startled, as the door creaked open, revealing a woman dressed in a crisp white uniform, her expression softening as her gaze landed on me. "Good morning, miss." "I'm Elena," she introduced, a kind smile breaking through the tension. "I've brought you some breakfast. Mr. Cavanaugh thought you might be hungry." "Mr. Cavanaugh?" I echoed, the name striking me with unfamiliarity and yet laced with an electric curiosity. The billionaire. The ice-blue eyes. The stranger who had tangled my world. Elena set a tray on the edge of the plush bed with practiced ease, all the while regarding me with a gentle compassion that eased some of my apprehension. "He'll be back shortly. Don't worry. He just needs a moment. It's been a long night." Her words hung in the air, a fragile thread of understanding that momentarily wrapped around us like a shield against the unknown. I nodded, finding comfort in the eclipsing calmness of her presence. "Thank you," I managed, my voice a mere whisper. As she poured orange juice into a delicate glass, Elena glanced up, her blue eyes mirroring a sincere kindness. "You're safe here. He wouldn't let anyone harm you. He cares more than he shows." "Cares?" I repeated, a swell of disbelief rippling through me. How could someone so imposing, so clearly capable of power, also experience care? It felt like an unfitting puzzle piece in this transformed narrative. And for a flicker of an instant, I wondered, had I caught a glimpse of his heart buried beneath the icy exterior? Elena seemed to sense my confusion. "He's complicated, but deep down, he's just trying to protect what's his. Don't take it personally." "His?" The question slipped out before my mind could catch it. "People find their own meanings in relationships, dear. Not all of them are straightforward." She looked out the window for a moment, a shadow of something passing over her expression before she returned her gaze to me. "You'll figure it out. I believe in that." The words resonated, building a fragile hope within me that fluttered like a moth near a flame. Perhaps in this chaos, there was room for understanding, for healing. "Thank you for being kind," I replied, the rawness of my emotion surprising us both. As Elena stepped out, she paused, casting one last glance over her shoulder. "You have a strength inside you I believe he'll recognize. Just be patient." The door clicked shut, leaving me alone with my thoughts again. I moved to the tray, the aromatic scent of freshly baked croissants wafting through the air. I wasn't hungry, yet I felt an inexplicable need to do something grounding. I picked up a croissant, its flakiness catching my fingers, and took a small bite. For a fleeting moment, I closed my eyes, savoring the buttery richness as if it could wrap me in comfort. But just as the warmth began to seep into my soul, the door burst open. I jumped, nearly dropping the croissant as I turned. There was no caution this time. His eyes blazed with a fiery intensity. The storm from before had returned, and my heart raced in response. "I told you to stay put," he said, his voice reverberating like a thunderclap in the stillness. "Where did you go?" I shot back, a rush of assertiveness bubbling up. "Not your concern," he replied sharply, but there was an undercurrent of tension in his stance, an unseen force pushing against the vulnerability that threatened to spill over. "What do you want from me?" My words hung in the cabin air, heavy with unanswered questions. The silence felt unbearable, drifted between us like a chasm that demanded crossing. But before he could respond, the phone in my pocket buzzed furiously, the sound piercing through the tension. I fished it out, heart racing as I saw the name flashing on the screen. Hannah, my best friend. I hesitated, a sudden wave of dread crashing against the thin veneer of my hope. What if my night had consequences, repercussions that stretched far beyond this gilded cage? I looked up to find him watching me. His face was a mask, unreadable and dark. "Answer it," he said, and while I wanted to deny him the satisfaction, curiosity wrestled with fear. As I swiped to answer, I caught a glimpse of something in his eyes. Was it fear? Or was it a deeper anguish that mirrored my own? "Hannah?" I said, my voice laced with a quiver of uncertainty. "Where are you? We've been worried sick." Her voice broke through the airwaves, and my stomach knotted at the weight of her concern. I struggled to conjure the truth. The words lodged in my throat like sharp stones. But before I could find my footing, the unanswered question hung between us like a fragile thread. Was this new chapter going to reveal connections that would bind me to this man or tear me apart? In that moment, as I looked into his eyes, I understood we were both teetering on the edge of a precipice. And the next step either towards him or away would change everything. The air was thick with tension as I held the phone to my ear, Hannah's worried voice echoing in my mind. I could sense him watching, the weight of his presence pushing against me, and it sent tremors of uncertainty through my chest. "Where are you?" she continued, her concern escalating with each word. "You disappeared without a word. I thought something bad had happened." I stole a glance at him, the intensity of his gaze sending conflicting jolts of fear and warmth through me. But I couldn't unravel the mess of emotions as I warred between honesty and the need to protect my newly fragile equilibrium. The truth felt like a double-edged sword. I am okay," I managed, the words tasting flat against my tongue. "Just taking a moment to figure things out." There was silence on the other end, filled with Hannah's disbelief. "Taking a moment? Was that before or after you went off with a billionaire? What the hell, Lila? This isn't like you." A flash of anger ignited within me at her tone. "You don't know the full story," I snapped, clenching the phone tightly. "Then tell me," she replied, the urgency in her voice returning. "I can't just sit here wondering if you're safe." Her words echoed, and in that instant, realization unfurled like a flag unfurling in a windstorm. Safety felt like a mere illusion now. I'd stepped into a world ruled by shadows and secrets, one where I was a player in someone else's game. I looked back at him, desperation creeping into my heart. "I can't explain now. Just give me a little more time. I promise I'll call you back." "You better. You know I'll come for you if I have to," Hannah warned, and despite the anger lacing her protective tone, I felt warmth flare in the corners of my chest. Before I could respond, he reached over and took the phone from my hand, his movements swift and unexpectedly gentle. My heart raced as I watched him press a button, terminating the call with a gesture that felt final. "You don't need to talk to anyone right now," he said, his voice low, charged with an urgency that sent my nerves singing. "Why? Because you think you know what's best for me?" I shot back, temper flaring in response to his authoritative presence. "This isn't your decision to make." His blue eyes smoldered with something deeper than frustration. There was fear tucked beneath that hardened exterior, an emotion that felt vulnerable and raw. For a second, I almost pulled back, as if his pain had reached across the divide that separated us, offering an unspoken connection. "Don't you understand?" he said, his voice strained, almost a plea. "This world the one in part off, it's not safe for you. I can't let you get hurt." I took a step closer, the distance between us trembling with potential, an electric current. "But I'm a part of this now whether you want me to be or not." His expression flickered, a hesitant storm of emotions. Just when it seemed he would respond, the door swung open again, and a man dressed in a suit entered, briskly flipping through a stack of papers. He seemed oblivious to the heightened atmosphere, his focus solely on the documents. Mr. Kavanaugh, we need to discuss he paused, looking between us with an arched eyebrow, sensing the tension that crackled in the air. "Am I interrupting?" The billionaire hardened immediately, the warmth of connection snuffed out as he turned his back to me, swinging into business mode like a cloak of armor. "Not at all. What's the update?" With a reserved nod, The newcomer launched into a report, but my mind raced, the abrupt shift catching me off guard. Had I imagined the moment of connection, or had it simply been a product of this fragile sanctuary we had fashioned in chaos? The conversation washed over me, fragmented words and hurried gestures, while my thoughts churned like a restless sea. The urgency in his voice, the way he commanded the other man without a hint of vulnerability, drew a line in the sand, reminding me of the chasm between us. This wasn't just a billionaire. He held the reins of a world I was not equipped to navigate. I noticed how the other man glanced at me occasionally. Confusion etched on his face. I stood there, an outsider in a prominent tableau, lost somewhere between the woman I once was and the one I seemed powerless to become. As the meeting dissolved into silence, I felt a pull toward a sudden impulse. I took a breath and stepped closer to him, eyes searching for his when the words slipped out before I could halt them. What did you mean by not safe for me? The intensity returned to his gaze as he brushed past the man to come nearer. I can't guard against every threat. Just trust me. You don't want to know everything that's happening here. I do, I pressed, emboldened by the ache in my chest. You don't get to decide what I can handle. He opened his mouth to retort but was interrupted by the sound of a loud crash from the hallway outside, followed by muffled voices. My heart raced as uncertainty flooded the room. Stay here, he ordered, but his tone was sharp, commanding, the edge of authority palpable. No! I blurted, voice trembling with a mix of defiance and fear. I'm not going to just hide away while you face whatever that is. To my surprise, he seemed taken aback by my unexpected ferocity, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of admiration in his icy gaze. It lasted but a heartbeat before he steeled himself. I need you to trust me, he reiterated, voice low but unyielding. With that, he rushed toward the door, and in that moment, a decision was made between USA's silent pact forged in uncertainty. I was left in the hushed room, anxiety thrumming through me. Then, just as I turned to follow him, a loud voice echoed from the hallway. You can't hide forever, Kavanaugh. We know what you've done. The words slammed into me, chaining my heart to the ground as realization crashed over me. Whatever was hidden in this gilded cage was darker than I could have ever imagined. The reverberation of that declaration echoed not just in the hallway but inside me, awakening questions that could threaten to unravel everything. With dread pooling in the pit of my stomach, I realized that unraveling the truth behind his life, the intricacies and entanglements that held us in a precarious state, might propel us further apart rather than close the distance, igniting a darkness we may not be prepared to face. And as I opened the door, ready to confront the chaos alongside him, I had no idea if the next step would lead to liberation or a deeper imprisonment. The hallway stretched before me like a dark tunnel, the voices echoing ominously against the stark walls. My heart raced as I fought against the steady pull of dread coiling within me. Those words, "We know what you've done," wouldn't leave my mind. What could be so terrible in his past that it drew adversaries out of the shadows and into the light? As I stepped out, the atmosphere shifted, charged with a new gravity. The tension was palpable, thick like smoke. I spotted him at the end of the corridor, his posture tense, hands clenched at his sides, a visible mask of determination set upon his handsome features. But beneath that bravado was an unsteady flicker of fear that mirrored my own. I could feel it, an electric connection that tethered us closer even in the face of impending chaos. "Stay back!" he bellowed, pivoting sharply toward me as though to shield me from whatever storm was approaching. My pulse quickened at the assertiveness in his stance, a deadly mix of protection and dominance. But I was stepping into murky waters of my own making. No longer could I be a passive observer in this unfolding drama. Before I could respond, the shouting escalated, and out burst a faceless figure from the shadows, a burly man with ink-black hair and a sharp glint in his eye. He cast a glance my way, and suddenly the world around me narrowed down to a single moment. "Jonathan," the intruder sneered, his tone laced with feigned camaraderie that turned my stomach. "I've come to collect what you owe." "Back off, Parker," Jonathan shot back, his voice colder than ice, yet something in his tone hinted at an old history that lay buried beneath the surface history I was desperate to uncover. I perceived the shift in their faces, the way Jonathan's demeanor altered, revealing just the slightest crack in his armor. Is this the prize you've decided to gamble with now? Parker continued, eyes dancing over me like a predator assessing its prey. A foolish step for a man like you. The air thickened with unspoken tension, swirling between us as I felt the undeniable weight of Jonathan's gaze. I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes, a fleeting moment of indecision, a vulnerable crack in his once unyielding facade. Suddenly, the fight wasn't just for him, it was for all of us. Enough! I found my voice rising above the chaos, rising out of sheer instinct to protect. Whatever this is about, I won't stand here while you two hurl threats like it's just business as usual. Both men turned to me, and the surprise in their expressions seemed to ring true. For a fleeting moment, the hostility shifted, and I felt the connection I had always had with Jonathan swell. But that was overshadowed by the reality of the confrontation. I couldn't back down, not now. Parker cracked a grin, seemingly entertained by my defiance. And what do you think you can do, little girl? This doesn't concern you. Maybe not, I shot back, my heart racing like a wild stallion. But I'm a part of this now, whether you like it or not. Jonathan's expression softened marginally, as if he, too, was beginning to recognize that I was no ordinary girl caught in the fray but a force in my own right, a revelation that momentarily breached the chasm between us. The flicker of admiration I had seen earlier sparked to life once more. Well, you should have thought twice before getting involved with a man like him, Parker sneered, stepping closer to Jonathan, challenging him like a knight marking his territory. You know nothing about her, Jonathan growled, and suddenly we were both in the spotlight, the air thickening with implications. Then tell me, Parker said, shifting his attention back to me, the gleam in his eye menacing, what makes you special? What's your value in this tangled web? Those words hit me like a punch, and I felt every ounce of insecurity surge to the surface. What was I doing here? A glimpse of doubt flashed across my mind, while Jonathan stood beside me, exuding a fierce protectiveness, yet I could tell he was grappling with how to respond to this sudden affront. We're in the middle of something much bigger than you realize, Jonathan replied, his jaw set in determination. And I won't let you use her against me. Is that so? Parker challenged. Then prepare for war. With those words hanging in the air, a thrill of panic coursed through me, but alongside it was a burning ember of hope. In the face of opposition, I felt how interconnected we had become, the threads of our destinies weaving tighter, almost insolvable. But before I could say another word, the distant sound of a siren wailed through the night, drawing our attention and leaving a palpable tension in its wake. Parker's demeanor shifted. Was a hunter caught unprepared, realizing the game was changing. Let's take this discussion further away, he said, backing away, his gaze darting down the hallway as though contemplating an escape. Jonathan moved forward, his movements strong and fluid, ready to confront. I'm not going anywhere with you. After all this? Parker scoffed, flashing a blade of a grin that sent a chill down my spine. You'll regret this mistake, Kavanaugh. That was when I realized in horror. The stakes had escalated in these brief moments, and whatever loyalties I thought I had understood would be put to the ultimate test. Jonathan, charged with a secret past I was desperate to uncover, wasn't just protecting me. He was fighting for a wayward redemption against currents darker than I could fathom. But before I could fully grasp the depth of what was unfolding, Parker turned, fleeing into stifling shadows, his exit significant and heavy with implications. The siren wailed again, the sound echoing through the hall, a reminder that the world outside was rushing toward us, indifferent and unforgiving. As I felt Jonathan's presence beside me, the air crackling with the weight of what we might lose, I saw the determination in his eyes shift to something wholly different. There would be no going back. What are you hiding from me? I asked, the question slipping past my lips before I could rethink it. He exhaled, those blue eyes now holding the storm of a tempest, almost pleading. This isn't just about us, Lila. It's about a war I never asked for and a price I've already paid. As I stepped back, my breath hitching in my throat, the realization shattered against the weight of my heartache. The love I thought we had forged might now lead us further from the light and deeper into darkness. But as I looked into his eyes, I couldn't help but wonder if this time, together, We could find our way out of the labyrinth before user if the path only led to destruction. Somewhere deep down, I understood, the truth was not just the key to safety, but the very thing that could shatter our tenuous connection into pieces we might never be able to mend. This saga was just beginning, and I felt a cold sense of foreboding washing over me. Whatever happens next and with you, I declared, though the words trembled, anticipating the fallout from a choice I could scarcely comprehend. The knowing darkness behind his eyes drew closer, and with that, dread wrapped around my heart, sealing it tighter. The room around us pulsated with tension, every shadow seemingly holding secrets that could fracture our world. Jonathan turned away from me, pacing, his strong form dictating an agitated rhythm. I could hear the sirens approaching in the distance, a reminder that we were racing against time, and the city beyond was shifting gears, oblivious to our turmoil. "Lila," he finally spoke, his voice low but charged. "You need to understand that my life me past could endanger you. Parker isn't just some disgruntled ex-business partner. He's been waiting, watching my every move for years. He's not going to back down just because I want him to. And my heart raced not just from fear for my own safety but rooted in a deeper despair. What kind of monster have you entangled yourself with? What choices did you make that led you here?" I pressed, my voice thick with emotion, wanting so desperately to peel back the layers that veiled the man I was slowly falling for, frustrations boiling just beneath the surface. "There are things I can't explain," he admitted, anguish flickering across his features. "I thought I could control it, put it behind me. But it's all come crashing back, and somehow, you got swept up in it. I don't want to be a pawn in your game or anyone else's," I asserted, crossing my arms tightly against the fragile warmth of my resolve. "You may think I'm fragile, but I've faced my own ghosts. You need to trust that I can handle the truth." He seemed to falter, leaning against the wall, uncertainty clouding his cerulean gaze. "It's not about trust, Lila. It's about protection. I care about you more than you know, and that makes this all the more complicated." Just then, the sirens crescendoed to a blaring climax, and the shadows around us seemed to stretch menacingly. My pulse thrummed loudly in my ears as the world outside began to converge around our unfolding chaos. I could feel a shiver creep up my spine as the ominous weight of Parker's threats hung in the air. "What if he comes back?" I asked, the very thought tightening my throat. "He will come back," Jonathan growled, his frustration now bubbling to the surface. "He won't let this go. You don't know how far he's willing to go to protect his ambitions. How do you know I won't stand by you? You haven't seen me fight." I shot back, fueled by the fierce spirit ignited within me. In this moment, I felt as though I was reaching for something more than just survival. I was yearning for validation, for a partnership that extended beyond fear. He paused, shock mingling with admiration in his gaze. "I don't want you fighting my battles. But they are our battles now," I reminded him, stepping closer, bridging the expanse forged by fear and resistance. "If you care about me, let me in. You can't face the demons of your past alone. We have to face whatever is coming together." I could see him absorbing my words, and for a flickering heartbeat, I believed we could pivot this darkness into something stronger. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, steady and relentless. Panic radiated through me, and I instinctively grabbed his arm, whispering, "What do we do?" He snapped into focus, his presence galvanizing. He swept me behind him, a barrier of strength as we held our breath, the atmosphere abruptly heavy with anticipation. Then the door swung wide, revealing a silhouette cloaked in uncertainty. It was not Parker, but a woman clad in dark jeans and a leather jacket, her presence a stark contrast to the chaos around us. The moment her gaze landed on us, a myriad of emotions played across her face: recognition, worry, anger. "Jonathan," she breathed, breathless, her voice laced with urgency. "We need to talk. Now. It's about Parker and what he's planning. It's worse than we thought." Jonathan's eyes widened, a mix of fear and urgency igniting a fire within him. "How do you know about him? What do you mean?" I felt the ripple of ice encircling my heart at this sudden intrusion. Who was she, and how was I supposed to fit into this equation? As the woman stepped into our space, casting a wary glance at me, It felt as though I had abruptly been transported into a world I didn't know, where allies could quickly turn into adversaries. Because he's after more than your past, Jonathan. He knows about Lila. He's using you to get to her, she whispered, the weight of the revelation hanging thick in the air.my breath hitched, confusion washing over me. What? How is that even possible? Parker has ears everywhere, she replied, urgency spilling from her lips. There are people in your life, Jonathan, who have been feeding him information. You need to understand, you're not the only one in danger. Jonathan's expression morphed into a mix of anger and horror. I can't let him touch you. I want, enough. The woman interjected, her voice crackling with authority. You both need to listen. We have to move now, or we'll be caught in the crossfire. As she turned to guide us out of the room, my heart raced not just with fear, but with dread at the unveiled reality shattering whatever fragile semblance of safety I had imagined. Parker wasn't merely a shadow from Jonathan's past. He was a harbinger of chaos that threatened to pull us into the storm. Drawing in a deep breath, I turned to Jonathan, tears brimming in my eyes. I refuse to be a pawn in this, Jonathan. If we're doing this together. No more secrets, no more lies. His eyes flickered with a mix of hope and despair, and I could see he was battling between a way to shield me and the inevitable truth that there might be no turning back. The door to our freedom was on the brink of closing, but I couldn't force myself to abandon the man whose heart I believed could be a sanctuary. As chaotic as the path laid out before us might be, we stepped into the unknown, the air saturated with looming threats, the walls around us pulsing like a heartbeat echoing with urgency. Whatever lay ahead would test every fiber of our beings and challenge the bond that had just begun to take root among the ruins. With shadowy whispers trailing behind us, we plunged into uncertainty, and I couldn't shake the premonition that this was only the beginning of a battle far greater than anything I could have ever imagined. The worst was yet to come, and we were about to find out just how deep the darkness could reach. As we moved deeper into the maze of the building, the woman led the way, her strides purposeful and calculated. I stayed close to Jonathan, who was tense and alert, his eyes darting around as if he were expecting danger to leap from the shadows at any moment. The air hummed with adrenaline, and with each footfall, I felt a sinking feeling in my chest. Every corner we turned felt like a step into darkness, away from the light of my once simple life. Name's Clara, the woman said over her shoulder, startling me out of my spiraling thoughts. I'm here to help, but you both need to trust me. Parker's got a way of turning people against each other. He thrives on chaos. Help? Jonathan echoed, his voice a strangled breath. This isn't just some game we're playing, Clara. My life and hers are at stake. I know that. She shot back, her frustration palpable. Do you think I would come if it wasn't urgent? Parker knows every player in this game, and he will use them against you. The sooner we act, the better our chances. Jonathan's jaw clenched, a muscle tightening in defiance, but I could see the threads of fear unraveling his composure. I reached out, placing my hand on his arm, feeling the tension that coiled within him. What do we need to do? I asked, my voice steady even as my heart raced. If we were truly to confront this darkness, I needed to stand tall beside him. First, we need to reach a safe house, see a friend of mine who understands this world and can offer protection while we plan our next moves. Parker won't stop until he gets what he wants, Clara explained, glancing back at us. Once we're there, I'll tell you everything I know about him and the people connected to him. Why should we trust you? My question cut through the tension, my voice stronger than I felt. You're not some random ally. You know Jonathan's past. Because I'm also a target, she replied, meeting my gaze with sincerity. Parker's reach is long, Lila. I was close to Jonathan's past, but I've turned my back on it. I want him to escape that life for good. But I can't do it alone. For a brief moment, the tightness in my chest eased, the vulnerability of sharing our fears forging an unspoken connection between us. Here stood a woman who carried a burden of her own, yet she was willing to fight alongside us. Okay, Jonathan finally said, his voice softer, as if the ice around his heart was beginning to thaw. Let's trust her, Lila. We don't have time to waste. We continued down the corridor, the dark walls seeming to close in as the urgency of our plight collided with an unexpected flicker of hope. It was a jarring contrast, but it reminded me that within the shadows often birth strength. There were cracks in the darkness, and maybe together, we could find the light. As we emerged into a wider space, I saw it was an underground parking garage. Clara scanned the area and quickly led us towards the far end. With each step, the tension morphed into an intoxicating mix of fear and determination. But new doubts surfaced like relentless waves. Were we truly safe, or had we merely traded one insecurity for another? Without a word, Clara pressed her palm against an intercom. "Gabe, open the gate." "It's me." A low voice crackled back, hesitation lacing through the static. "Are you sure it's safe, Clara? You know, open it now," she snapped, a fierce edge sharpening her tone. I looked at Jonathan, whose gaze shifted toward me, an unspoken question hanging in the air. I could feel it was searching for confirmation that we were making the right choice. The heavy metallic door began to slide open, revealing a sleek black SUV that seemed like a beacon amongst the chaos. As we hurried inside, an unsettling silence surrounded use and absence of the world outside, yet thick with anticipation. Clara took the driver's seat, while Jonathan slid in beside her, leaving me nestled in the back, my heart pounding as we pulled away from our hidden refuge, leaving the shadows behind. "Where are we headed?" I asked as the car maneuvered through the labyrinth of concrete. "Just a few blocks away," Clara answered, her attention unwavering on the road. "But keep your heads down and pay attention. Security will be tight." I turned to Jonathan, feeling the weight of his gaze on me, marinating in concern and unsaid words. "What's on your mind?" I asked softly, determined to spark a connection before the looming storm set in again. "Just wondering how we got here," he admitted, a bittersweet smile playing on his lips. "It feels like 2 lifetimes have passed since I first met you. Now you're sounding like a romantic," I teased, a small spark of levity brightening the shadow that loomed heavy between us. "Don't let my protective instincts fool you. I'm still a mess," he replied, the hint of a laugh escaping him, though it felt momentary. "But seriously, Lila, all of this could be my fault. I wish I could erase the past shadows that captured you." "Maybe it's not about erasing it, but learning from it," I urged gently, leaning in closer, my heart drumming loud in my chest. "We can't undo what's happened, but we can choose how to face what's coming, together." Our gaze locked for a heartbeat that felt suspended in time, a profound understanding passing silently between us. Just then, Clara's voice sliced through, reminding us of the urgency. We could not dwell too long in what-ifs and regrets. "I need you both to stay sharp," she said, her tone grave. "Parker has eyes everywhere. We shouldn't underestimate him." But as the car sped further away from our hidden torment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just a temporary escape. I leaned back against the cool leather seats, feeling a sense of impending doom wash over me. And then the world exploded in sound. Blaring horns and screeching tires filled the air. "Clara!" Jonathan yelled, his tone sharp with alarm. Before I could register what was happening, a vehicle swerved in front of us, blocking our path, and suddenly, chaos erupted. I could see silhouettes moving toward us, shadows marked with intent, crushing the fragile sense of safety we had clung to. "Get down!" Clara shouted, her voice fraying at the edges. Jonathan instinctively turned toward me, his protective instincts surging, a lifeline amidst the chaos. As the noise crescendoed, and the danger closed in, I realized this would be no simple escape. We might have thought we could outrun the shadows of our past, but they were chasing us faster than we could run. In that moment, as we braced for the impact, I understood the battle ahead would stretch the very limits of our souls. The next chapter was about to unfold, and none of us were prepared for the truths lurking in the darkness. The screech of tires cut through the air, sharp and unyielding, as Clara jerked the steering wheel to evade the vehicle that had suddenly veered into our lane. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The SUV swerved hard, careening toward the edge of the concrete barriers of the garage. "Hold on!" Clara yelled, her voice taut with determination. I instinctively grabbed onto the seatbelt, digging my fingers into the leather as the vehicle fought against gravity and control. Jonathan did the same, instinctively tightening his grip on my hand, grounding me amid the whirlwind of chaos. It was as though time warped, each second stretched into a painful eternity. "Clara, go left!" Jonathan shouted, his voice strained, guiding her as if they shared some unspoken connection I was unaware of. "I'm trying," she barked back, her eyes darting from the road to the rearview mirror, searching for the would-be assailants. I could see shadows looming behind us, a sense of relentless pursuit that fed each heartbeat in my chest. A moment later, we spun, tires howling against the asphalt, but the SUV wobbled in the happiness of escape. My breath was a series of uneven gasps as the scenery blurred around us. Just then, I locked eyes with Jonathan, a mix of fear and fierce resolve igniting between us like a promise whatever was waiting on the other side of this chaos, we would face it together. "Stay low," Clara reminded us, her voice sharp as a knife, and I ducked instinctively, feeling the rush of wind skimming past, almost alive with the danger just outside our windows. I could hear the thunder of another vehicle roaring toward us. "Clara, they're gaining!" Jonathan yelled, panic creeping into his tone. "I know," she gritted. "I can't lose them suddenly." My gaze caught a flicker of movement from the sidewalk. One of Parker's men. He was flagging down another car, eyes narrowed in our direction. My heart sank. "He's calling for help," I shouted, my voice mingling with the chaos. "Get ready, it's about to get worse," Clara warned, her voice steady even as her grip tightened around the wheel. In that instant, I felt a shift, a cold realization was settling in the pit of my stomach. The real danger wasn't just the men chasing us, but the truth that had brought us here. The shadow of Parker loomed larger, ever-present and threatening. As Clara maneuvered down a narrow alleyway, we were compelled to make a choice: fight or flee. The thought of turning back never crossed my mind. What awaited us there was far more sinister than this chase. I searched Jonathan's eyes, desperate to communicate the urgency of our situation. Was he ready to face the storm ahead? In a movement so sudden, shock reverberated through me. Clara slammed the brakes, the tires screeching in rebellion. "Get out!" she yelled, thrusting open her door. "What?" "Trust me," she barked, already halfway out of the car. Jonathan and I exchanged a bewildered glance. There was no time to deliberate. Without another word, we flung our doors open, stumbling into the damp air of the alley. We were met with the gritty scent of the city, the remnants of rain mixed with the distant aroma of street food. In that fleeting moment, I felt a rush of freedom and dread, as if we'd escaped one cage only to leap into another. "Through here," Clara motioned, leading us down a cramped path cluttered with discarded boxes and forgotten hopes. Shadows wrapped around us, hiding us from both view and perception, but the sense of urgency propelled us forward. Each footstep echoed loudly against the walls, the sound filled with the weight of our racing hearts. But there was no turning back now, only ahead. With Jonathan at my side, the fear that gripped my heart morphed into a fierce resolve. Just as we rounded the corner, our breaths heavy in the alley, the world tilted abruptly on its axis. A figure stepped into our line of sight, sharp and defined against the dim light, a silhouette shrouded in familiarity. "Jonathan?" The voice sliced through the air, sending a bolt of recognition crashing into my chest, confusing my senses. "Daniel," Jonathan breathed, his brother appearing like a ghost poised between us and an uncertain future. "What the hell are you doing here?" "You're supposed to be." Jonathan's tonality shifted, the mix of disbelief and relief raging like fire within him. "It doesn't matter. We don't have time for that." Daniel's eyes darted to Clara and then back to us, urgency wrapping around his words. "Parker's men are everywhere. We have to move, now." And just like that, the tenuous thread of trust one had begun to weave unraveled before my eyes, tangled in family ties and dark shadows. The loyalty we clung to felt like stepping onto a tightrope, an invisible abyss yawning beneath us. The air thickened with tension as Jonathan's gaze flickered between his brother and the questions burning in the silence, an unmistakable weight shifting between us. In that moment, I realized, Parker's reach extended deeper than I ever imagined, and the ghosts of the past were far from finished with us. Do you trust him? I whispered, my voice trembling as uncertainty swelled within me. Jonathan met my gaze, his eyes shadowed under the weight of knowledge and fear. An answer remained dangerously elusive. The stakes were higher now. The ties we thought bonded were beginning to fray, and fresh uncertainties loomed like storm clouds above. In the quiet chaos of that moment, I felt a darkness encroaching, ready to swallow us whole as we stared into the abyss of choices ahead. The alley swallowed us whole, a cocoon of shadows that felt both protective and confining. My heart beat against my ribs, reminding me of our precarious situation. Jonathan stood frozen, staring at Daniel as uncertainty danced in his eyes like a flickering flame. I took a hesitant step forward, my voice barely above a whisper. Do you trust him? The question felt like throwing a stone into turbulent waters. The ripples of Jonathan's decision could alter the course of everything we had fought for. His brow furrowed, the weight of the past pressing against his chest like a leaden anchor. I don't know, he confessed, the vulnerability in his words palpably raw. Jonathan had always been the steady one, his resolve unwavering, but now he stood at a crossroads, and the path forward felt fraught with doubt. Daniel edged closer, his presence both a comfort and a threat. I wouldn't have come if I didn't think you were in real danger, he urged, urgency bleeding into his voice. You remember the talk Dad had about family? Parker's been gunning for you both for a while now. We're more connected than you think. Confusion crushed my ribcage. What do you mean connected? I asked, glancing from Jonathan to Daniel, yearning for clarity in the chaos. He's using you against your brother, Clara, Daniel shot back, frustration flaring. He knows you're the key to reaching Jonathan's inheritance, and doesn't care who he destroys in the process. We have to act now, before it's too late. Panic surged through me as the truth echoed in my mind. Parker always seemed one step ahead, his schemes sowing discord and fear among those closest to us. Let's move, Clara interjected, her voice the final anchor amid the storm. She turned abruptly, leading us deeper into the alleyway. Without questioning Daniel's motives any further, we stumbled behind her, trying to keep pace with the heavy silence rebounding off the walls. The alley felt as if it was closing in with each hurried step, and I found myself glancing over my shoulder, expecting Parker's men to emerge from the shadows at any moment. Where are we going? Jonathan asked, determination threading his tone, yet I could sense the tremor beneath it. To a place I know safe for now, Clara replied, glancing sideways at Daniel. But we have to keep moving. We turned another corner, and I caught the faint sound of sirens blaring in the distance, weaving ominously through the city's night. I felt an urge to question Clara, to probe deeper into her resolve, but the urgency clouded my judgment. We were on borrowed time, and every second stretched painfully, weighed down by uncertainty. Before long, we emerged from the grimy alley into a narrow street lined with dimly lit storefronts, remnants of life bustling in the daylight. Clara picked up her pace, guiding us toward a small door nestled between a cafe and what looked like an old bookstore. Here, she said, her hand pushing against the door. It creaked open, and we stumbled into the quiet interior of a hidden sanctuary, the musky scent of books intertwining with the softness of old leather. Where are we? Jonathan's voice echoed in the small space, filled with barely contained disbelief. This was my mother's shop. She left it to me when she passed. Clara's eyes glistened in unexpected vulnerability layered beneath her resolve. I thought it would be a safe haven, somewhere Parker wouldn't think to look. The words hung in the air, burdened with memory's soft loss, of hope, and the unraveling threads of a shattered family. Is it? I found myself asking, wrestling against the darkness that had begun to cloud my heart. The bond we had built up felt fragile and uncertain, yet vital in the face of our impending doom. I don't know, Clara murmured, her voice steadier than her demeanor. But it's all I have left. As if those words unleashed a dam of emotion, I felt Jonathan's hand slip into mine, the warmth grounding amid the turmoil. Gritting my teeth against the rising tide of fear, I caught Daniel's gaze and saw the shared pain engraved on his features, the burden of family ties far more suffocating. Then I had imagined out a heavy silence reigned like a looming storm, each of us fully aware that our moment of reprieve was merely temporary. Just when I thought there might be a glimmer of safety, Clara's phone buzzed violently against the wooden counter, shattering the fragile piece we clung to. She answered it, her face paling as she listened. "What do you mean? You're sure?" Her voice trembled, and a cold dread pulled in my stomach. "What is it?" Jonathan asked, the room falling into taut silence. Clara's eyes widened, and I felt the air shift uneasily. They've found us. There's a warrant out for all three of us. Parker is desperate, he's using the police to get to us. The revelation hung heavy, and my heart plunged into an abyss of despair. A world of darkness enveloped our fragile haven, and the uncertainty I had so carefully crafted into hope began to unravel. Against the backdrop of the quiet bookstore, surrounded by the ghosts of yesteryears, the enormity of our situation became suffocating. There was no safe haven left for us, not anymore. With Parker's men circling like vultures, the storm we had hoped to outrun was closing in. And deep down, I feared that the ties of trust were fraying too quickly, leaving behind only a canvas painted in shades of betrayal and heartbreak. As Clara dropped the phone, its finality instilled dread that coiled around us. The door burst open, and the oppressive weight of uncertainty exploded into our reality once more. Time seemed to stutter as three figures stood silhouetted in the doorway, familiar faces, dangerous questions, and one truth hanging in the air like an executioner's noose. Trust brought consequences, and we were about to pay a steep price. The flickering lights of the bookstore cast dancing shadows on the walls as the figures stepped further into the room. My heart raced, a clattering reminder of the terror that had quickly become our companion. Clara instinctively positioned herself between us and the newcomers, her protective instinct flaring, even in the face of peril. "Stay back," she warned, her voice feigned confidence. Jonathan gripped my hand tighter, a silent communication of fear and determination. My eyes darted between Clara and the introducer, a disheveled man whose face I recognized as Adam, an underling of Parker, and beside him stood two police officers, faces serious and eyes scanning the room like hawks. The tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. "Clara Bishop," Adam said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Long time no see. Isn't it cute how you think this old bookstore could hide you?" "Get out," Clara replied, her voice unwavering even though I could see the tremor in her fingers. "Sorry, sweetheart. We're just here to help you, be taking you in. Your brother Parker thinks you might have some answers about just about everything." He gestured lazily, as though speaking of a mere inconvenience. Do you really think he cares about us?" Jonathan spat, the rage igniting within him palpable. The dynamic in the room abruptly shifted. The walls felt damn close as the concealed truth festered unaddressed. Adam chuckled darkly. "Oh, he cares. Just not in the way you think. This isn't just about you, Jonathan. This is about power." His eyes flickered toward me, lingering with a disconcerting mix of admiration and disdain. "And Clara. You have the key to all his plans, whether you realize it or not." I recoiled at those words, a chill sweeping through me. Clara, the shield that had always kept us safe, was now so vulnerably exposed, a light bulb in the dark. Meanwhile, my heart sank further into the depths of worry. If Clara was the key, what was she truly capable of, and what damage had Parker inflicted to wield her against us? "It's a trap," I murmured, my voice uncertain, yet grounded in the fear clawing at my rationality. "You don't trust him, Clara. Do you?" "I don't even know who to trust anymore," she replied, her voice breaking into a whisper teetering on the edge of panic. "Parker has twisted everything. You have to believe me." The police officers shifted subtly, their gestures urging Adam to keep the upper hand. "You might want to step aside, Clara. You're making this harder than it needs to be," one of them said, his words void of empathy. Suddenly, like a wave crashing over the shore, something in me ignited. I couldn't just stand here, passive and helpless. "You don't have to do this. You can walk away," I urged, attempting to reach past the grim exterior of the enemy and see the fragile human aware of the weight of choice. "Walk away?" "And risk losing everything," Adam replied, a sneer decorating his lips. You see, in this game, Clara isn't merely collateral. She's the centerpiece, and you all are just pieces on a board. Before I could process what had said, Clara stepped forward, a fierce protectorate of her own fate. No! You will not use me or any of us like this. I won't go with you. With the tension slicing through the air, the two officers exchanged glances, their shoulders tensing at the escalating confrontation. Suddenly, Clara swept her hand towards a bookshelf, knocking down a brass-accented vase. It shattered across the floor, pieces scattering, reflecting the gravity of our fractured situation. Clara! Jonathan shouted, fear and love mingling in his voice as he reached for her. Run! She urged, fierce determination shining in her eyes, revealing a strength I'd never known she possessed. I could hardly comprehend the peril we were in, yet Clara's courage illuminated a possible chance, a reckless hope fueled by adrenaline and defiance. In that heartbeat of a moment, as our heads spun with rapidly evolving choices, I took a leap toward understanding this wasn't just about escaping Parker's grasp. It was about claiming our shared story amidst the chaos. Go! Clara shouted again, and, as if orchestrated, Jonathan's grip on me tightened instinctively. With a shared glance, a silent promise, we bolted toward the back of the store. My heart thundered wildly as I battled against the inexplicable pull to turn back and surrender to the darkness that loomed behind us. We barreled through the small corridor, heartbeats harmonizing with the sounds of the confrontation boiling behind, echoing like a war cry in our ears. Behind us, the officers shouted. The unmistakable thump of footsteps striking the wooden floor grew closer. I can't believe we're doing this. Jonathan's voice cracked as panic laced through each syllable, merging into the resolve to protect the ones we loved. Just as we reached the rear door leading out into the back alley, now a sanctuary of shadows buffeting against moonlight, we heard Clara scream. A heart-wrenching sound echoed around us, sending my insides swirling with dread. I turned, pulling Jonathan sharply to a halt, confronting my compelling urge to turn back. Something had happened, and it threatened the fragile essence of who we were. Clara! We both called out, melding our voices into a desperate plea. And when we finally spun around, the weight of uncertainty grasped us harder, unraveling the very fabric of our reality. Standing at the doorway, illuminated by the waning pale light, Clara was no longer alone. Adam was there, a glimmering badge above his heart, and beside him stood Clara's fierce gaze, neither wild nor broken. In an unexpected turn, Clara's features softened as Adam reached out to her, a sinister yet oddly protective expression sweeping over his face. You're in too deep, Clara, he murmured, his voice lowering to a tremor. You're going to have to make a choice. As the confrontation crystallized in that agonizing moment, I felt my heart plummet once more, knowing that the trust among us had begun fraying to the point of no return, leaving secrets undiscovered and wounds unhealed. The choice Clara had to make would tip the scales, and as her eyes met mine, the glimpse of what lay ahead became more terrifying than the darkness we had just fled. The storm was closing in, and it wouldn't be long before our deepest fears became reality. Standing there, suspended in a moment that felt like fading echo, I was acutely aware of the suffocating silence that enveloped us. Clara's determination hung in the air like a fragile web, woven with trust but threatened by doubt. As Adam loomed over her, the weight of choices pressed heavily on my chest. I understood, as if the battlefield between us had crystallized the very essence of loyalty pulsating against the fierce drive to survive. Clara, don't! Jonathan shouted, the anguish in his voice puncturing the silence and urging me forward, toward her. I could see the conflict etched across her face like a torrential storm, the struggle between allegiance to her past and the fight to carve a brighter future alongside us. Clara, I breathed, my voice wavering but steady. You don't have to choose them. We can find a way through this together. With those words, I stepped forward, reaching beyond the divide, desperate to breach the gap that had widened like an abyss between us. It was more than just a plea, it was a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. I can't go back to him, she whispered, eyes glistening with unshed tears, the vulnerability laid bare in the periphery of Adam's pressing form. I've been running from this life. I don't know how to break free. Suddenly, the room felt charged, a palpable tension sparking between the opposing forces. Adam's eyes darkened, and he leaned in closer to Clara, his voice low and threatening. You know what's at stake, Clara. You owe him too much to turn your back now. Think about your family. Family? I echoed, my heart pounding against my ribcage. It was a provocatively loaded word, tainted with betrayal and lined with the choices that no longer felt like choices. Is that what you're fighting for, Clara? To repeat the cycle of pain? Jonathan's grip tightened around my hand, a supportive squeeze that ignited the embers of strength within me. We stood shoulder to shoulder as if we were a bulwark against whatever came next. The ripples of uncertainty began to taper as determination anchored my heart. No, Clara's voice surged, resolute now. I'm done being a pawn in someone else's game. I have to stand for something. The declaration carried the weight of every unvoiced sorrow, every suppressed scream that had once inhabited her world. That movement tenuously stirred something in Adam's demeanor, a flicker of confusion, tenderness, and a wave of vulnerability that broke through the icy facade he had worn like armor. Clara, don't, he implored, stepping closer, his eyes softening. We could still have a life. I want to protect you. Protect me? From what? She shot back, her voice strong but tinged with emotion. From the truth you've kept hidden? From your brother? In that electric moment, a truth began to unfurl in the tension muting the air. The choices made echoed in chambers of our souls, a labyrinth of love, betrayal, and survival. Enough! Adam hissed, anger crisping the air back to its edge. The officers shifted behind him, closing the space like a tightening noose. You don't get to walk out of here. You think this is a game? You're delusional. But Clara stood unabashed at that abyss, awakened by the confluence of all we had fought against. Maybe it's time you see how deep I'm willing to go. This is my fight, and if you want me, you'll have to take all of the darkness and light, she declared, a fire igniting in her gaze. I could feel Jonathan's grip tighten again, a fierce solidarity. You don't have to do this alone anymore. We're in this, all of us, he insisted, the assurance surging, grounding us. With that, I stepped beside Clara, unafraid of the shadows that gathered at the doors, cautious yet ready to confront whatever was thrown our way. Together, we could break the chains that bound us. Suddenly, the sounds from the street outside intensified. Sirens wailed a warning that thrummed with urgency, a midnight chorus coaxing us to break free or be swept away. But Clara's inner strife cracked open another door, one leading not to fear, but to resolve. What if we choose to fight? I suggested, my heart racing. For our futures, for our stories, to create a path beyond this spiraling chaos? The flicker of uncertainty in Clara's eyes danced with a burgeoning flame. Together, she whispered, a glimmer of acceptance igniting her resolve. At that moment, something changed. Adam shifted, uncertainty flickering over his features. You're making a mistake, he said, but beneath the surface lay a hint of fear of us rallying together, of unity unearthing strength born from pain. Shut up! Jonathan burst, the anger burning but showcasing his shield against the encroaching chaos. If you want us, Parker will have to face us all. And just like that, we turned our backs toward the door. The shadows sharpened, but we faced them head-on, hearts racing, united under the shelter of bonds forged from shared chaos. Our resolve surged, transforming fear into the marrow of defiance. Together, we shattered the confines of secrecy that had long held us captive, the warmth of unwavering faith rippling through the frigid tension. Out of my way! Clara demanded, her voice laced with power, assertiveness cradling vulnerability threatening to break through. I'll take you out before you ever touch her. Adam shouted, his control slipping. Then try, Clara responded, unyielding as shadows danced in her wake. And as the confrontation exploded with the fierce intensity of lightning, I felt the dawn of something greater crackling in the edges of our realish, an unexpected alliance born from shades of trust and the fierce need to reclaim our lives. I stepped forward, determined to help Clara stand firm against the tide of uncertainty gathering at our backs. Because this wasn't just about confronting the past. It was about standing for tomorrow, a tomorrow where we claimed our narratives under the steaming sky of hope. Clara faced Adam, and the rest standing between us, the barrier breaking, the shadows shifting as light surged in our favor. Our voices rose like a clarion call, resilient against the frailty of our stories intertwined. This was more than survival. It was the reckoning of our choices, the commitment to each other, visualizing a future unchained from our pasts. The air crackled like thunder above the streets, and suddenly the sirens were joined by a chorus of voices, fellow allies emerging from the haze. They stepped into the fray, seemingly out of nowhere, but anchored in resolve we had yet to acknowledge. Together as one, we charged forward. In the chaos, I cherished the tenacious flame of hope burning inside me, brighter than before, my heart pounding at the thought of the fight ahead. This was our reckoning, the moment when we gathered our strength to rise above the shadows chasing us. And in that singular moment, as the darkness whirled with intention, hope pierced the horizon, redefining us as we stood on the precipice of a blooming dawn, a beacon illuminating the path to our rebirth. Because we were not alone, we had the power to choose together. And as our voices formed an unbreakable harmony, I understood deep within, the light had never really left us. It was growing, ready to engulf every shadow and ignite the fight within. As chaos raged, we surged forward, claiming our space, unafraid, writing a story that resonated against all odds. The last echo of those fateful moments carved something profound within, a connection, a promise threaded through our lives, binding us irrevocably as we faced the storm. Together, I whispered again, and it flowed through all of us, a heart-stirring anthem binding us closer than blood ever could, illuminating the path to freedom that lay ahead. Because as we moved through the storm, I realized that love was more than a word. It was an unbreakable force, the very fire that would lead us home. And in that realization, we cast off the burdens we had carried, stepping into our truth, reaffirming our choice to be defined by hope rather than fear. We were rising strong, united, and emboldened, and together, we would emerge into the light.